I'm Chris Carter, the Locked On Steelers podcast here at Acrisure Stadium after the Steelers have won 26-22 over the Cleveland Browns on Monday Night Football. This is your Locked On Now report. Just briefly after the game, we will have a full episode, so brace for that. But the story of the game has to be the Steelers defense finding ways to make big plays when it was absolutely needed. And that was the breakdown that we had all week going into this game. We knew that the Steelers' interior defensive line was going to struggle without Cam Hayward. I do think they might have found some answer to that with Keanu Benton, that they played more in the second half. We'll get more into that in a bit. But also, you have to look at T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith. Not only did they both get a sack, not only did they both get multiple tackles and look strong in their parts against the run, but they both scored touchdowns. First play of the game, Alex Highsmith catches a tip pass from Minka Fitzpatrick and takes it all the way back for a touchdown, starting the game, giving the team a lead. Then towards the end of the game, the touchdown that put the Steelers ahead for good, you had T.J. Watt picking up a fumble caused by none other than Alex Highsmith. Between them, 2 sacks, multiple quarterback hits, multiple tackles, a forced fumble. T.J. Watt also broke up a pass at the line of scrimmage. Compared to the other side, the key edge rusher that they had, Myles Garrett, 1 tackle, 1 quarterback hit, nothing else. And that was a huge part of this game story, was Myles Garrett not being a game wrecker and those guys being game wreckers. But let's make it clear, this was not a clean game. The Steelers had a lot of mistakes, especially in run defense. Levi Wallace giving up another big run where his gap was responsible for on a play where the play kind of broke back towards him. But that's 2 weeks in a row that there's 60-plus yard runs given up by him. I know Mike Tomlin's not going to be happy about that. But even on top of that, other things to break down here. On offense, we have to talk about Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett finished the day 15 of 30, 222 passing yards, 2 sacks, and threw a touchdown, also threw an interception. I'll say this before I get into everything else. The touchdown pass to George Pickens was on the money, a great read, and a sign of confidence that something good can come from this offense if they start executing what's called. The first half, I thought, was a mix of Kenny Pickett not seeing the right things up until that touchdown, and also the offensive line needing to make some adjustments and some things that just weren't clean. But in the second half, I felt it was more on the offensive line, and specifically Matt Canada. Matt Canada, I thought, called a fine first half, but in the second half, you saw some of the things when they were starting to build momentum. He would kind of take it away with some of the play calls that he calls. And everyone who watches this show knows I'm one of the last people to bang on Matt Canada for everything. But to the point where the fans were chanting, "Fire Matt Canada," at the end of the game, this one was for a reason. In the second half, when the Steelers offense was building things, you had 2 long Najee Harris runs. He broke off a 17-yarder and a 20-yarder, and then Jaylen Warren gets 5 yards in a run, and then you call a reverse that wipes all of it out, and they end up losing their chance to score in that possession, which could have broken the game open for them. I think that there's still a lot to clean up here, especially in the offensive line. Isaac Seumalo, I thought that he had some mistakes in the game, giving up pressures, but I do look at this though. The Steelers getting through this game with a win, 26-22 over a divisional opponent who was a nightmare for Joe Burrow and the Bengals last week. This is a huge win to come out of this, as ugly as it was for the Steelers. Them coming out of this with a win means they can take all the lessons that they need to learn from this film and apply it forward, but with a win in their win column, and now sitting at 1-1 in the division, tied with the Browns, and now they have a tiebreaker over them. They'll get their rematch in Cleveland later this year, and they're only 1 game back on the 2-0 Baltimore Ravens. All that adds up to what is a positive night for the Steelers, but lots of things to still worry about. Minka Fitzpatrick left the game with a chest injury. Nothing was really said about what that chest injury was, at least up until the time I've recorded this. If that's a torn pec, that's a huge loss for the Steelers defense, as is Nick Chubb for the Cleveland Browns. This was a mashing into a game. Both teams losing star player after star player on both sides, or even just key role players on both sides. A rough game. But again, I think it speaks to the fortitude that exists within this team and the potential that exists within this team, that they found a way to gut out an ugly win. We talked all week long about how this was going to be an ugly football game, how the edge rushers were going to have to step up, and how George Pickens was going to have to step up. All 3 of those things happened, and the Steelers found a way to win. That's a huge step forward. We'll have a lot more to break down here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Get all of this show Monday through Friday, breaking things down. We will have a full episode coming out later tonight, setting you up for the morning. We hope to have Alan Saunders from Steelers Now, who is also here with me at the stadium, breaking down the full game and getting you guys ready for the rest of the week here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.